Hey there, tiktakers! Today, we woke up wanting to remember one of our favorite creepies, Slenderman. For this reason, we have included in this video his story and also that of some of his proxies, Toby, Masky, and Hoodie. Are you ready to feel scared? Slenderman is a human-shaped monster. He's very tall, more than 2 meters tall, and his face is white and featureless. He wears a dark suit and a tie. Nobody knows whether this is his actual skin adopting that shape or just the clothes he uses to mix up with people. His hands do look human, but his fingers are longer and bonier than usual. On top of all of this, he also has tentacles, which can reach as far as he desires. Nobody can see him if he doesn't want to be seen. He can even decide who sees him and who doesn't at the same time. People say in the beginning his behavior was very aggressive. He followed his victims incessantly until he impaled them on trees and made their organs disappear. But his actions have changed a lot as time went by. Now, Slenderman observes in the shadows and hounds carefully without any kind of interaction, taking the victim's soul little by little. Those stalked by him start to become forgetful and unstable. They soon realize they don't have a social life anymore and they are isolated from the world around them. It gets harder for them to go out and a lot of them end up losing their jobs. He has the capacity of driving his victims crazy, and when they don't have anything else to offer, they disappear and nobody sees them ever again. People say you can know it when he's around, since he interacts weirdly with electronic devices and causes interferences with recording devices. Radios, cameras, recorders, or televisions are especially sensitive to his presence. He's been capturing pictures, but always when he's too far and can't affect the camera. Slenderman stalks both children and adults. When the victims are kids, he usually gets close to them nicely in the beginning and tries to win their trust. Right after, he makes them disappear when they go into the woods alone or when they try to go back home. Actually, the character was born for a contest on the Something Awful forums in 2009. Participants had to upload a retouched picture, a scary one. One of the users uploaded a picture with children playing in the park, and in the background, hidden in the shadows, you could also see the figure of this strange and pale creature. The picture surprised everyone so much that it ended up becoming something bigger. People started uploading pictures on the internet with his gloomy image, and a lot of them started giving him special abilities and making up more details about him. Obviously, his story is similar to other stories from the past, such as the German legend of the Grossman, a super tall and terrifying humanoid who lived in the woods and took children who misbehaved. The story of the Boogeyman is also similar to Slenderman's. This creepypasta actually went too far when, in 2014, 2 girls from Wisconsin stabbed 19 times another girl with a knife, because according to them, they had to prove something to Slenderman. After the murder, they were planning on escaping and finding shelter at the mansion of the devil in the woods. Luckily enough, the stabbed girl did not die. Slenderman's fame grew so much that different web pages about him were created, such as Marble Hornets or Everyman Hybrid. In 2012, the video game Slender the 8 Pages was released, and only a year after, the game Slender the Arrival came out. In both of them, the players had to gather different notes while Slenderman was following them, to avoid dying. In 2016, HBO released a documentary about the 2 girls that attacked their friend. Beware the Slenderman. He has become so famous that the movie Slenderman, based on him, is expected to be released in 2018. Without a doubt, the legend of Slenderman is one of the most terrifying ones on the network, and it never stopped growing. But remember, don't believe everything you read or see on the internet. The creepypastas are made-up stories, and nobody should take them too seriously. One weekend, after going partying with my friends, I was walking back home on my own. A breeze was blowing and I could hear the noise of the hinges. Most people would find it terrifying, but not me. I knew this town very, very well. I have the knife with me. I'm strong and fast. What should I be afraid of? Suddenly, while going under a streetlight, I turned to the alley I usually went to with my friends, and I saw someone searching for something inside the trash can. I didn't see the person's face. However, I did hear the creak when his head turned to one side, as if he was an owl. I went back. I was in shock, but right away a smile appeared on my face. I know it's weird for someone to have such a reaction after seeing something so unusual, but I am weird in general. Damn it, drug addicts always doing weird things. I laughed at that thought and kept walking. My boots were hitting the floor and the sound they made seemed to be following a rhythm. I was happy to be alone at home. My mother was working a lot lately and I was pretty much always on my own. It's dark at night. Everything around me seemed to be on fire. I'm floating slowly in the dark and confusing world of dreams. You know, that comforting feeling when you know you're asleep, without direction, calm, everything's in peace, while your blurry memories come to your brain. Suddenly, I wake up. I realize my eyes are open. I get comfy in my bed. I blink a couple of times and my eyes get used to the darkness. I sit there for a while, wondering what has woken me up. I'm about to nestle between the soft sheets again, but right before I do, a strange sound calls my attention. It didn't sound very strong, so I assumed it was coming from the street. It was probably cats. Stupid animals. I hated it when cats woke me up. Annoyed, I laid on the bed, which bounced a little. The sound didn't stop and it synchronized with my head. Was it a crack on the wall? Was it real or was it just in my head? I sat up again, the sheets sliding between my arms. While one of my hands was laying on the bed, the other one was looking for the knife in my night table. My fingers felt the handle and grabbed it. Maybe I was exaggerating, but better safe than sorry. I grabbed the knife firmly, closer, as if it was downstairs. It sounded like steps. I could hear the sound slowly in my corridor. I had no doubt there was somebody in my house. I felt a tingling while my hair stood on end. My heart was beating like a gust of adrenaline through my body. It was frozen like a marble sculpture. I didn't even dare to breathe. I could feel each beat resounding in my body. If I made any noise, whatever was out there in the hallway could hear me. What should I do? Scream, ask for help, attack him, kill him, hide? Determined, I jumped off the bed. I saw the shadow of feet in front of my door. A crack of light invaded my room. However, there was a shade covering most of it. I was breathless, but my heart kept beating. A cold sweat took over me. The hinges were making noises. The door was wide open. I tried to scream. I was paralyzed. Suddenly, the alley and the trash can came to my mind. It was the same person, the same figure. A shiver ran down my spine. I only had the strength to say no. I could see whoever was stalking me was a man. His face was completely hidden by orange glasses, a hood over his forehead and something covering his mouth and his chin. He got close, staggering a bit. He was coming slowly and sinisterly towards me. He put his hand on his face. Shh. I went back towards my bed. I was holding the knife so firmly that my knuckles were bleeding. I realized the man had an axe on his hand, a lot more impressive than my little knife. I could see blood dripping from it. The intruder held the axe up. Blood was running down it. I couldn't move and I let my knife go little by little. It fell noisily on the ground. I stifled a cry and I heard a sound. Shh, he said again, while he kept walking towards me. I noticed his neck was at an inhuman angle. I heard the noise of his bones, his tendons, the sound of death. I couldn't escape, I couldn't move. I was waiting for it. My heart was beating faster and faster. Everything was getting blurrier. I felt I was gonna pass out. His body was moving weirdly. He took another step closer. His neck looked like it was cracking. That mysterious noise again. That sounded familiar now. Shh, he said once again. He was only a step away from me. He raised his axe. I was gonna die. His axe got closer to me, slowly. I could feel it touching my stomach. In that moment, I felt a hand on my shoulder, lifting me a bit, enough to feel the blade cut in my abdomen. Agony was all around me. My body was rigid, fear, shock. I couldn't see the night stars anymore. My vision turned black and white. My world spun around. The last thing I saw was a pair of shoes with silver point and the puddle of blood reaching the shoes of the intruder. And then, my world turned black and numb. Timothy had a difficult childhood. His parents were killed when he was little. He found them in the room bleeding. It was one of those days when he blacked out and didn't remember anything that happened in the last few hours. This happened often. The psychiatrist diagnosed him with schizophrenia and prescribed some pills to help him overcome it. Besides the gaps, he also suffered from headaches, saw strange things, and became obsessed with a being that chased him everywhere. A slender, faceless being who always wore a suit. The doctor said they were hallucinations caused by this illness, but he felt it was real. All this shaped his character. Tim was a shy and lonely boy. As he grew older, the hallucinations disappeared, and he only suffered from memory loss when he forgot to take the medication. When he went to college, he met Brian, who would become his best friend. They shared a gloomy past filled with fuzzy memories. Brian always took care of Tim. They were like brothers and supported each other. A friend of Brian named Alex asked him to participate in a film he was creating for a college project called Marble Hornets. They gladly accepted. Alex was a very professional director and they had a good time shooting footage. Everything was going perfectly until Alex became a little paranoid. He was obsessed with someone or something watching him all the time. His behavior changed and he was increasingly stressed and irritated. He took the camera with him everywhere and used the tapes he had to film himself. When Tim reviewed the tapes with Alex, they discovered something strange about them. There were many distorted parts where the audio or image was cut off. Some of them had the silhouette of an elongated man wearing a suit. When Tim saw him, he felt nervous. The man in the suit looked very familiar to him. He looked very much like the one who appeared in his hallucinations when he was younger. He needed to know the truth about what was happening, so he decided to stop taking the pills. He grabbed his old video camera and inserted a tape to record himself like Alex did. He hit the red button and left the camera tracking the whole room. The image framed the bed from the table, and you could see the closet and the bedside table with its bottle of pills and the lamp. The next morning, he woke up confused in bed. His bottle of pills had disappeared and there was a strange white mask with black eyes and lips instead. The camera was lying on the floor. He picked it up. It had stopped recording but it still contained the tape. Intrigued, he rewinded and hit the play button. There was the video of his room. The pill bottle was on the bedside table and everything seemed normal. Suddenly, in the video, Tim began to make strange gestures. He sat on the floor and with his hand pretended to draw a symbol repeatedly. Then he got up and left the room. He didn't remember any of that. He looked at the screen very surprised. There was nothing going on for 10 minutes other than strange noises and distorted images. In the video, the camera was still placed on the table, focusing on the whole room. Then, an elongated shadow appeared, which became more noticeable as it approached. It was a man. He wore the same clothes as Tim, a no-collar jacket and dark trousers, but his face was covered by a white mask with black eyes and lips. The masked man took Tim's bottle of pills and put it in his pocket. He stealthily approached the camera until a close-up of the creepy face was seen. He fogged the lens with his breath and wrote MASKY. Then the camera fell to the floor and remained focused on the corridor before cutting the recording. At the bottom, waiting, there was a man dressed in a suit with no face. It was Halloween at last. Brian was a young man eagerly awaiting this day to enter his school's costume contest. He thought about dressing up as a Slenderman. At school, no one knew him. He knew it was an original idea and he could win the first prize. Brian was a bit shy, always wearing jeans and a yellow hooded sweatshirt. But for the costume, he asked his mother to get him a dark suit, a tie, and a white mask. When his mother came home from shopping, Brian went to receive her excited. He checked the bags and was disappointed because the suit wasn't what he expected. "Mom, I told you it had to be black bottoms, not gold." "I'm sorry, honey, but I couldn't find it." and the mask had to be flat with no eyes or mouth. There was no mask like that. You can always disguise yourself as something else. Brian went straight to his room. He was angry. He wanted to disguise himself as a Slenderman, not a gentleman in a suit with a smiling face. He came up with the idea of searching YouTube for a tutorial on how to make a good mask, and he found one to make it with lycra. Then he went to the local haberdashery store and left the order, but the order took 3 hours to finish. So his mother would have to take it to school directly to get to the parade on time. Brian showed up in his costume at school, and his classmates looked at him without really understanding the costume. But he only cared that his mother would arrive on time. Just as the principal was about to announce the winner, Brian begged him, almost crying, to wait 10 more minutes. After a while, his mother arrived with the mask, and relieved, he wore it. It didn't look the way he expected, and they started laughing at his costume. Then they announced the winner, Peter Robinson, who was a werewolf. Brian went home upset. He wanted to go as a Slenderman and worked hard to prepare his idea. Every night before going to sleep, he would read his creepypasta. He knew everything about him. He even fantasized about meeting him in person. He thought of going into the woods and introducing himself in his costume. After a few laps, he sat down on a hopeless log. He punctured his finger with a wood splinter and drawn with fresh blood a symbol which was supposed to summon Slenderman. He reworked the circle several times until something caught his attention. It was a dark, sinister sensation, as if someone was watching him among the bushes. It was a Slenderman. He was standing there, motionless. "Come on, Slenderman, come near me." Slenderman walked towards him. He pulled the thick black liquid from one of his tentacles and drew a mark on Brian's forehead. The exact same mark that Brian engraved with his blood. Then he fainted. The next day, he woke up in his room. He thought it was all a dream and went down to the kitchen for breakfast. There, his mother explained to him that he had been found unconscious in the woods with that strange mark on his forehead. Brian ran to the bathroom and looked into the mirror, and the symbol was still there, untouched. "I want you to erase that from your face." "But mother, I can't. Slenderman did it to me." "Who is he?" "Slenderman is real, and yesterday I was with him." His mother thought he was delusional and reluctantly held him to wash his face with soap and mop. But the mark didn't go. It looked like a tattoo. From the bathroom window, he was surprised to see in the garden a huge tree with a black trunk. It had never been there before, so they went outside. His mother approached the tree, and suddenly 2 black tentacles popped out. It was a Slenderman. One of them landed on Brian's body, surrounded him, and transformed him into a kind of black ski mask that completely covered his face. The other tentacle grabbed Brian's mother and left her on the ground lifeless. Brian was no longer himself. He had become Hoodie. He went with his Slenderman to Peter Robinson's house with a metal bar, and he retaliated for taking away his victory in the costume contest. It all became a fuzzy memory for Brian. Today, he doesn't really understand what happened. And what Brian doesn't know is that Hoodie lives inside him and anxiously awaits the orders of his master, Lord Slenderman, to obey again. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like it, and if you want to see more Draw My Life videos, subscribe to our channel. See you in the next episode!